and welcome to part 3 of the Transitioning to a Plant-Based Diet workshop series. This one's a really exciting one. It is looking at the specific nutrients that a person who is following a plant-based diet is more likely to be lacking in than if they were following a standard westernized diet. I'm focusing on 9 key nutrients here, but that doesn't mean that others aren't important. It just means that from my experience, they're less likely to be an issue when following a plant-based diet. Many of these nutrients would have traditionally been either absorbed into the plant from a rich topsoil, or our ancestors would have eaten these nutrients by consuming small amounts of this soil. Whereas modern day technology, modern day practices, we tend to use chemicals to wash our fruit and vegetables, chemicals as pesticides, and also we tend to fiercely wash these fruit and veg to make sure that there's not a trace of soil on there. And so ultimately we end up consuming a much lower amount of these nutrients and minerals from the soil and from the plants. And in addition to this, it can also be based on your location. So some areas of the world and even within your own country can have different variation of nutrients in their soil. And so ultimately that filters down to the foods that are grown there and then the foods that you actually eat. These 9 key nutrients are the ones I wanted to focus on. They're the ones that are most likely to be consumed in lower amounts in a plant-based diet. So the first nutrient I want to discuss is vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is an essential nutrient to the body. It's involved in developing red blood cells, nerve, heart, immune system, and brain function. Around 2 to 5 milligrams is stored in the liver. In humans, B12 can be synthesized by bacteria in the gut, but this happens too far down in the gut for the B12 to then be absorbed into the body. Some B12 is secreted in bile and then recycled back into the body, and this means that B12 deficiency can take a long time to develop because this B12 is being recycled through the body even after the diet amount of B12 is depleted. For those who follow a plant-based diet, it's really important to ensure adequate intakes of B12 to prevent this deficiency, as often after 3 to 5 years, we have actually already started to cause damage to our body, even if we don't feel any signs or symptoms yet. B12 is found minimally in plant-based foods, although it is found in soil surrounding these plant-based foods. Animals generally consume B12 from the soil and consume bacteria that creates the B12, and then this bacteria then releases the B12 into their guts for absorption. We then would usually eat the animals and then therefore get our B12 from there. Humans would have traditionally eaten this way as well. They would have eaten the vegetables as well as bits of soil surrounding when they were foraging, etc. But in this modern day, we heavily cleanse our food from dirt and bacteria, and therefore we need to rely on the process of animals eating this way to then get our B12 from them. B12 can be consumed in varying quantities depending on its abundance in the soil where the vegetables are grown. And it's thought that this abundance may be higher in organically grown produce or soil where metals are less abundant. And this can vary across the country. Sources of B12 in a plant-based diet include seaweed, tempeh, fortified plant milks and cheeses and cereals, tofu, and some plant-based meat substitutes that are also fortified, so mostly fortified substitutes. Additionally, B12 can be found in nutritional yeast, which is what people use to add that kind of cheesy flavour to meals, and it also can be found in Marmite. So really that's quite a limited amount of foods, especially if you are avoiding those fortified, maybe more processed alternatives. Per day, a person needs to eat 1.5 micrograms if you are an adult aged 19 to 50 years old, and the recommendations do change with these other ages and for children. Signs that you are deficient can include muscle weakness, fatigue, pins and needles, a sore or red tongue, mouth ulcers, disturbed vision, impaired brain function, including depression, confusion and memory problems. But again, it's really important to ensure you're having enough B12 before you get any of these symptoms. Now, should we supplement it? There's actually a lack of research on naturally occurring plant-based dietary sources of B12. It's best to recommend that an individual following a plant-based diet ensures they have either a good intake of B12 through fortified sources, for example nutritional yeast, or you can choose to supplement this nutrient. And supplements can come in many forms, including a daily mouth spray or even a 3-monthly injection. The next nutrient is iodine. Now, iodine is a essential nutrient used by the thyroid gland to form thyroid hormones, which play a strong role in the regulation of metabolism in the body. Humans rely on dietary sources of iodine to keep levels in the body adequate. So plant-based sources of iodine include cereals and grains. However, the levels of iodine within these foods can vary greatly depending on the amount of iodine in the soil where the plants are grown. It's recommended to have 140 micrograms per day for adults aged 19 to 50. Signs of iodine deficiency could include impaired cognitive function, which can be expressed even as depression and anxiety. More severe signs are enlargement of the thyroid gland, which is also called a goiter, and ultimately iodine deficiency can cause hyperthyroidism, which can affect growth and development as well. So should we be supplementing iodine? So in modern day, iodine levels in the soil may be reduced due to industrial agricultural practices and environmental pollutants as well. Those who follow a plant-based diet therefore may be at increased risk of being deficient in iodine, depending on where you live and where you also source your produce. So it may be necessary to supplement iodine. However, I must stress the importance that over-supplementation of iodine can be harmful. The NHS recommends that if a person wants to supplement iodine, they should take only 50 micrograms or less per day, no more than that. The next one is iron. So iron is used to form red blood cells, which carry the important task of spreading oxygen around the body. There's two types of iron. Heme iron is found in meat, whilst non-heme iron is found in beans, pulses, nuts, dried fruits, prunes, figs, whole grains, fortified breakfast cereals, soybean flour, dark green leafy vegetables such as watercress, broccoli and spring greens. How much do you need daily? So for men over 19 and women over 50, or women who have undergone the menopause, 8.7 milligrams of iron per day is recommended. For women aged 19 to 50, or those who are still menstruating, 14.8 milligrams per day is recommended, and this is due to the loss of iron during menstruation. So if you are a woman who does not menstruate for a different reason, the 8.7 milligrams may also be sufficient for you. Signs of deficiency can include fatigue, shortness of breath, heart palpitations and pale skin. Now, should we supplement iron? Heme iron is thought to be more readily absorbed than non-heme iron, meaning that those who follow a plant-based diet are at higher risk of deficiency. Studies have found that vegans and vegetarians should consume about 1.8 times the recommended intake to ensure that the body is able to absorb enough iron. So that's 1.8 times the 14.8 milligrams or the 8.7 milligrams, depending on if you are male or female menstruating or not. A benefit of the non-heme iron, and this is from data from the Nurses' Health Study, indicated that women who consumed higher amounts of non-heme iron are at a decreased risk of ovulatory infertility. Providing you supply your diet with plenty of non-heme iron and support the correct mechanisms of absorption, a supplement is not necessarily necessary. Great ways to improve iron absorption are increasing the amount of vitamin C in your diet. Foods containing vitamin C include guavas, kiwi, oranges, papaya, strawberries, and vegetables such as bell peppers, broccoli, tomato, kale, and snow peas. Other ways to increase iron absorption include avoiding eating foods containing calcium, polyphenols in the same meal that contains the iron. And a little bit later on in this video, I will talk about foods containing calcium. Foods containing high amounts of polyphenols are tea, coffee, and wine. However, it must be noted that polyphenols should not be avoided completely as they have their own health benefits. Consumption should be separate to the meals that include the iron. Taking too much supplemented iron has the potential to be harmful, as high levels of iron in the blood can be toxic. However, it is unlikely that this would happen unless you consumed a very high amount of supplemented iron. So pretty much it's best to try to get the iron naturally in the diet and only using supplementation as a backup if necessary. The next nutrient is folate or folic acid. This is a type of B vitamin that's used to form blood cells, and it's involved in the formation of the spine when a fetus is in the womb. It can be found in dark leafy vegetables such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, spinach, peas, chickpeas, and fortified breakfast cereals, similar to places where iron is found. You need 200 micrograms per day for adults aged 19 to 50. Signs of deficiency of folate can include extreme fatigue, pins and needles, sore and red tongue, mouth ulcers, disturbed vision, depression, confusion, and memory problems. So very similar to those of the B12 deficiency. So it's really important that if you do feel any of these symptoms, you need to get a blood test to see what's going on in the body, because it may not be so clear what exactly you are deficient in. So do you need to supplement it? Women who can get pregnant or are actually trying for a baby are recommended to consume a 400 microgram supplement daily up until 12 weeks of pregnancy, and this is considered a safe amount. For males or females that are not trying for a baby, a diet containing high folate foods should be sufficient. These foods must be eaten regularly as folate cannot be stored in the body long term. The next one is vitamin D. We may have heard a lot about vitamin D recently in the news. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it's involved in brain health, bones, muscle, pancreas, thyroid, and immune function, calcium and phosphate absorption. It also reduces the risk of Alzheimer's, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, cancers, type 2 diabetes, and autoimmune diseases, colds, and flu. Vitamin D is really unusual. It's formed in the skin as a result of sunlight exposure, but you can also get it in the diet as well. The plant-based dietary sources are mushrooms and fortified plant foods such as milk, cheese, and meat substitutes. However, it's not really found as an unfortified dietary source. You need 10 micrograms a day for adults aged 18 to 50. Signs of deficiency. So vitamin D is associated with calcium absorption. So therefore, a deficiency in vitamin D often goes hand in hand with calcium deficiency as well. So it can be represented by bone pain, a higher incidence of fractures and bone deformities, and is often noticed over a long period as opposed to like a sudden onset of symptoms. So do you need to supplement it? So poor sunshine exposure in modern times, from clothing to working indoors, sun cream use, and more, has reduced our body's natural vitamin D formation. It's estimated that 40 to 60% of the world's adult population do not get enough vitamin D. For those following a plant-based diet, consumption is likely to be minimal. A close monitoring of food consumption and safe exposure to sunlight in summer could be sufficient to ensure adequate levels of vitamin D. Or a supplement containing 10 micrograms of a plant-based D2 or a synthetic D3 could be useful to prevent deficiency, particularly in winter when sunlight is minimal. The next one is omega-3. So omega-3 is an essential fatty acid for brain development, function, and eye structure. It helps to stabilize the rhythm of the heart, lower your triglycerides, reduce heart disease, and Alzheimer's risk. It can prevent common types of cancer. It is responsible for memory, language, creativity, emotion, and attention. Plant-based sources of omega-3 can be found in flax seeds, chia seeds, when you crush or soak them, walnuts, hemp seeds, rapeseed oil, soya-based foods, and also certain types of microalgae. Many people know that fish contains omega-3s. However, fish do not make omega-3s themselves. They get omega-3 from the plankton and algae that they consume. There is no official recommendation on omega-3 intakes. Adequate intakes are 1.6 grams for males and 1.1 grams for females. So signs of omega-3 deficiency could be changes in behaviour and learning, and coping with stress and visual function. So do you need to supplement it? For the average person, consuming sufficient amounts of foods containing omega-3 should be enough. With sufficient knowledge, omega-3 can be obtained from plant-based sources. However, an algae supplement of 200 to 300 milligrams per day can be helpful, especially for pregnant and lactating women, older people, or those with chronic diseases. This algae supplement is beneficial over the fish supplement because it does not contain the toxins carried in fish and fish oils. Vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin used for blood clotting, bone function, and contributes to keeping the heart healthy. Vitamin K combined with vitamin D can promote strong bones and reduce the risk of bone loss and diseases. Vitamin K can be found in green leafy vegetables such as broccoli, spinach, vegetable oils, cereals, grains, sauerkraut, kombucha, and kimchi. 1 microgram per kilogram of body weight per day is recommended for adults aged 19 to 50. So for example, for a person who weighs 72 kilograms, they would need to consume 72 micrograms of vitamin K per day. Signs of deficiency can include bruising easily, small blood clots underneath the nails, bleeding from mucous membrane, so for example from the gums, and having stool that is dark and contains blood. So do you need to supplement it? So vitamin K2 supplements are widely recommended, and they may be beneficial for people who don't consume dairy products or fermented foods on a regular basis. As long as no more than 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight is consumed, it's unlikely to cause any further harm to the body. So zinc is a trace mineral necessary for the immune function, cell creation and growth, wound healing, and to create enzymes that assist the breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, and protein. Zinc can be obtained by consuming beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, oats, nutritional yeast, bread, and wheat jam. So 9.5 milligrams per day is recommended for men, and 7 milligrams of zinc is recommended for women per day, and this is aged 19 to 64. Signs of deficiency in zinc include weight loss, poor wound healing, fatigue, poor smell, taste, accompanied with a lack of appetite, and diarrhea. Most people can achieve a sufficient intake of zinc through a healthy, balanced diet. However, the zinc in plant foods can be bound to phytates, which make it difficult for the body to absorb it. Absorption can be helped by soaking and sprouting. However, a zinc supplement could be helpful to reduce the risk of deficiency. Should a supplement be taken, it should be no more than 25 milligrams per day, as more could be harmful. Calcium, very common one that is talked about with a plant-based diet. So calcium has many uses in the body. Commonly known for its involvement in bone health and structure, it is also used to regulate muscle contractions and is involved in the blood clotting process. Calcium can be found in green leafy vegetables such as broccoli, cabbage, okra, fortified plant-based milks, and tofu, sesame seeds, pulses, dried fruit, and brown and white bread. 700 milligrams per day is recommended for adults aged 19 to 64. Signs of deficiency can include bone pain, higher incidence of fractures and bone deformities, so similar to those signs and symptoms of vitamin D. And this is often, again, noticed over a long period as opposed to just a sudden onset of these signs or symptoms. So should you supplement it? Providing high calcium and vitamin D containing foods are included in the diet. Calcium intake should be sufficient. In addition, foods that contain phytic acid and oxalic acid should be excluded in meals where calcium is abundant, so they cannot bind to the acid and prevent absorption. These foods include spinach, collard greens, sweet potatoes, rhubarb, and beans. Taking too much calcium through supplementation can have negative long-term effects such as kidney stones, increased calcification of the heart, resulting in adverse cardiovascular events. Therefore, a supplement is not generally advised unless it is very low and for a short period of time. So that is our 9 key nutrients that I wanted to talk about today. So just to summarise, the supplements that are generally recommended to take for somebody who is following a plant-based diet are vitamin B12, iodine, and folic acid, particularly for those females who can or want to get pregnant. Optional supplements just for prevention of deficiency are vitamin K, iron, vitamin D, omega-3 and zinc. And then the one that is not really recommended for supplementation unless there is a extremely valid reason to do so is calcium. The major foods to consume to ensure optimum intake of all of these nutrients are dark green, leafy green vegetables such as watercress, broccoli, spring greens, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, spinach and okra, mushrooms, fortified plant-based milks, cheeses and meat substitutes such as tofu and tempeh, nutritional yeast, fortified breakfast cereals, whole grains and oats, seeds such as sesame, hemp, crushed and soaked flax and chia seeds, rapeseed oil, nuts such as walnuts, beans, pulses, legumes such as peas and chickpeas, dried fruit such as apricots, prunes and figs, seaweed, microalgae, vegetable oils, sauerkraut, kombucha and kimchi. And in case you forget, I will put this list in the description box below. It's clear from this list that a plant-based, whole foods, balanced diet is best for maintaining optimal health with the addition of adequate, safe sunlight exposure. It's possible to live and thrive on a plant-based diet that provides nutrition for health, well-being, and physical performance. So thank you everybody for listening. I know this one has been pretty information heavy, so feel free to take a look at the written version of this video below. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'll be happy to answer any and all of them. I hope you are having a good week and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!